Hello and good evening. You're watching Eye on Africa on France 24 with me, Nadia Massi. The headlines on the continent tonight. Reuters journalists find evidence of systematic illegal abortion programs run by the Nigerian army. It says thousands of terminations have been carried out, often without women's consent. Could Uganda be turning the corner in its battle against Ebola? No new cases have been detected for a week now. We report from the front lines of the battle to keep the virus at bay. And the energy giant Total in court, facing allegations of environmental damage in Tanzania and Uganda, where the company has major oil drilling projects. It's good to have you with us, and we start with that investigation in Nigeria into a secret abortion program apparently run by the Nigerian army. The news agency Reuters says it has uncovered evidence of a secret, systematic and illegal abortion program in the northeast of the country. Based on witness testimony and hospital records, the journalist concluded that between 2013 and last November, at least 10,000 pregnancies were terminated. Many of the women and girls had been raped by Islamist militants. The army has denied the existence of such an abortion program. With the details of the investigation, here's France 24's Caroline Lambolet.
Aisha didn't even know she was pregnant. She was rescued by the Nigerian military in 2019. She says she was given an injection.
I felt like I needed to pee, so I went outside towards the stream, away from the building. I squatted down, and then blood just started coming out. Turns out it was the pregnancy, but I didn't know. I came back and told them how I was feeling, but still I didn't know. They told us they would give us an injection, but they didn't tell us what it was. But they said it was even better it's aborted because it's a Boko Haram child.
Several women said they were made to give urine or blood samples after their release by the Nigerian army. Then they received unspecified injections and pills. The Nigerian army has been fighting an insurgency led by Islamist fundamentalist group Boko Haram for more than a decade. Thousands of people have died as a result of the conflict, and rights groups have also documented instances of sexual violence. Women and girls kidnapped and sometimes used as sex slaves by the militant group. But for those who were released by the Nigerian army, the ordeal didn't necessarily end there. A Reuters investigation published on Wednesday found that at least 10,000 women had their pregnancies terminated since 2013, most of them without their consent and even knowledge. Some were told the injections were to fight diseases like malaria. The Nigerian military denies this.
It has never happened, it is not happening, and it will not happen. It is not in our character. We are highly professional, we are human beings, and these are Nigerians they have been talking about.
But several soldiers confirm the existence of the program.
Women who have been rescued, and the rest of them, they're all gathered together and brought. They take the pregnant ones because they don't want them to give birth to children who will grow up with the blood of Boko Haram in their bodies.
4 soldiers and 2 security officers said they'd witnessed women die from the abortions or saw their corpses afterwards.
In other news from Nigeria, it's been 8 months now since gunmen attacked passengers on an Abuja train, killing 7 of those on board. Dozens were taken hostage and they were freed in October. Now, this week, the train resumed its regular journey to the northern state of Kaduna. Here's a closer look.
Ganiat hasn't been to Kaduna since March. On Monday, she was one of the few passengers aboard the train from Abuja.
I'm so happy to be on the service today, the first day of resumption. So we are starting afresh, and I pray the occurrence will not come again. We won't have a recurrence of that ugly incident, by God's grace.
The line was suspended in March this year after armed individuals blew up a section of the track. They opened fire on the train, killing several passengers and kidnapping dozens. The government blamed the attack on a jihadist group working in collaboration with local criminal groups. Negotiations dragged on for months between the kidnappers and the government, which came under heavy criticism for its handling of the incident. For Lukman, another passenger, it's time to move forward.
We will be apprehensive, but definitely we can't continue to live in fears. We need to move on with our life, and we hope the government will do the necessary in terms of providing security and make the citizens safe again.
The Nigerian military is already overstretched. For around a decade, it's been fighting a war against Islamic extremist rebels in the northeast region, allowing insecurity to take root in the northwest. Just days ago, gunmen killed a dozen worshippers and kidnapped several others from a mosque in Maiduguri, in the country's north. In February, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect the successor of President Muhammadu Buhari. Security will be one of the main topics as contenders face off for the top job.
In other news, a court in Mozambique has sentenced the son of former President Armando Guebuza to 12 years in prison for his part in a corruption saga that rocked the country's financial system. In total, 11 people were convicted in what has been dubbed Mozambique's hidden debt scandal. The story broke in 2016 when the IMF found out the government had concealed a $2 billion debt. The IMF then responded by cutting off the country's financial support, triggering a currency collapse. This Wednesday, Judge Baptista told the court the group had worsened the impoverishment of Mozambicans. In South Africa, a far-right extremist who assassinated anti-apartheid leader Chris Hani in 1993 has been released on parole. Janusz Walusz, a Polish national who emigrated to South Africa, has served nearly 30 years of his life sentence. His release has been widely condemned in South Africa and has sparked some protests as well. Hani was a revered figure and a fierce opponent of white minority rule in the country. Walusz shot him dead at a time when negotiations to end apartheid were in their final phase. The killing triggered riots that threatened to derail South Africa's transition to democracy. Now, over the course of the past 3 months, Ebola has claimed the lives of more than 50 people in Uganda. But there is hope that medics may be turning a corner in the battle against the disease. A week ago, the last known Ebola patient recovered and was discharged from hospital. But in the absence of a vaccine, authorities remain vigilant to avoid a new outbreak. Our reporter Clement Di Roma went to meet a doctor working on the health front line in the capital, Kampala.
Several patients infected with the Ebola virus were detected in Kampala, the Ugandan capital, last October. Since then, health centers have been on alert, such as this one in the city's suburbs. Dr. Mupere has just received his first suspected case of the day.
So this is the suspect who has been isolated.
This teenager has several symptoms of the deadly virus. The doctor remains careful. In just 3 months, more than 50 Ugandans succumbed to the disease, including 5 health workers.
Who are treated are also on the risk. When we see that it's positive, we isolate the family up to somewhere. We give some days or time to see whether they are developing the symptoms.
The doctor must protect himself with this essential outfit to collect a blood sample. Results will not come back for several hours, and this health center doesn't have a dedicated space for isolation.
I'm scared, of course, but as a frontliner, I do what I can. Where it's not, I cannot afford, I also give up. As I'm risking my life, I need to be supported also. While most people are running away from the situation, and then more people will die.
Uganda's health system is fragile, especially in Kampala, a city of 4 million people. These patients are wary of the epidemic.
When we come here, they give us precautions which we are supposed to follow. As you are seeing a patient nearer, sit a bit distant, let them work on the other, then you move next.
No new infections have been detected for a week. Despite the lack of resources, the country seems to be winning its fight. But for the NGO Doctors Without Borders, the situation remains worrying.
There are a lot of contact cases. It's people who could get sick, and we don't know exactly where they are and how they are doing. There is a possibility that a new outbreak could happen, so we remain cautious.
800 people are still monitored by the authorities. Uganda had not faced such an epidemic since 2000, when 200 people died from Ebola.
This Wednesday, Total Energy was summoned before a Paris court to face allegations that it is failing in its duty of care in Uganda and in Tanzania, where the oil giant is conducting major drilling projects. With the details, here's Kemi Knight.
It's on this land in East Africa that the Total Energies group is planning on carrying out 2 controversial projects costing $10 billion. They involve the drilling of over 400 oil wells and the construction of the longest heated pipeline in the world through neighbouring Tanzania, meaning across several protected areas. 9,000 kilometres away, the French company now faces accusations of human rights breaches, and environmental damage.
We've conducted a few investigations in Uganda and Tanzania as well, and what's actually happening on the ground is that the Talanga and Ika projects are affecting the land of over 100,000 people that's therefore fully or partially expropriated.
Lawyers involved in the trial, like Céline Gaget, have made use of a law that came into effect in 2017 on the duty of care of multinational companies. It means these companies can be held accountable in the case of human rights or environmental violations, both in France and worldwide.
Duty of care aims to put an end to multinational companies' impunity. Now, a parent company can no longer hide behind its subsidiary and say it's not me, it's my subcontractor. It has to act.
In a press release, the Total Energies Group guarantees that a plan is being implemented to ensure that the rights of local communities are being respected and that biodiversity is being preserved. The jury is expected to start its deliberations at the end of February.
And that's it for Eye on Africa this evening. Thanks for watching and good night.